against you, Julie, for stealing him away from his church, robbing us of the privilege of having him here every Sunday and Wednesday and all the other times. We don't hold that against you one bit. We don't even remember the fact that you robbed him, took him away, and we're now without him. But since Bobby got saved, he started sowing some seeds in a different way. And today, we see some of the fruit of that seed, sowing. We're beginning today a series of sermons on sowing and reaping. Sowing and reaping. When I was beginning to study this, and I was using my computer, and I'd been doing some research and putting it all in, and I had to name the file that I was saving it in. I named it Sowing and Reaping, which I thought was real original. And later I went back and looked, and I had named it S-E-W-I-N-G and reaping. And that's the wrong kind of sowing. We don't want to sow that way. We want to sow a different way. I want to read today, beginning in verse 7. Galatians chapter 6, beginning in verse 7. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, this he also will reap. For the one who sows in his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption. But the one who sows in the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. Let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary. So then, while we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, and especially to those who are in the household of the faith. Paul is ending the letter to the churches in the Galatian region, and he's giving them what he said two other times in other books, the analogy of a farmer taking seed and going out and sowing those seed. And Paul uses that in a spiritual way. And for the next several weeks, I want us to look at sowing and reaping. In these verses, we see that there are two ways we can sow. We can sow to the flesh, the corrupt nature. We can sow in sin. Or we can sow in righteousness. And we're going to spend some time talking about sowing in righteousness. I don't like to deal with the negatives that much. We're going to talk about bad sowing, and obviously you can always reap what you sow. But for the several weeks we do this, I want to look at how we can sow into good things, and what God will do when we sow good seed, and we choose to sow good seed. So what we wanted to do today is just kind of set the table for this series, and we're going to need to say some things, general principles that we need to understand. So write these down. Here's the first one. God operates according to a series of laws, okay? God operates according to laws. Now, in the physical world, we know this. God operates. The universe is set up with certain laws that are in place. And those are good things. Physical laws are good things, okay? And God operates everything according to those laws. And physical laws are very real. And they are very reliable. I'm glad God organized the universe with certain laws that are in place that no matter what, I know that it is real and it is always reliable. God ordained the universe that way. Think about this for just a moment now. In the physical realm, there is a law established by God that says any object at rest will continue to be at rest unless it is what? Acted upon by what? Another force that's greater than itself. Now, we know that is a real law. Those of us who are golfers practice this every time we play golf. We put a tee in the ground, and we put a little white ball on top of that tee. And we know that that little white ball will stay on that tee unless it is acted upon by a greater force, which for us, we believe, is a golf club being swung by the golfer. that is a real law. And it's reliable. Can you imagine golfers? Well, in football, the football player goes out and he puts a little tee on the ground and he puts his ball on the tee. Can you imagine if the law was not reliable, that says an object is going to remain in place unless it's moved by a greater force? Here's a guy getting ready to kick off the football and he goes out there to start kicking. The ball just kind of rolls off over here somewhere. Or it goes floating up in the air. That's not reliable. I'm getting ready to hit a golf ball off the tee and all of a sudden it just rolls on the ground and starts rolling over here. That's not reliable. God established laws that are reliable. I know that law. We have learned to use that law. Here's another one. As soon as winter is over, I don't know how much longer that's going to be. But right now we're in the dead of winter here. But when spring finally gets here, I will take a pail, a bucket of fertilizer, granular fertilizer, go out into my yard. And I will take my hand, reach into the bucket, and begin to throw that granular fertilizer. Now there is a real and reliable law. The law of gravity says that when I throw that fertilizer, what's going to happen to it? It's going to fall to the ground. That is a real law, and it is reliable. Can you imagine if I'm out in the yard with Kathy and I'm fertilizing and she's over there trimming the shrubs or something and I'm throwing this stuff on the ground and that law is not reliable and all of a sudden it all flies over there and hits her? I mean, she's going to look at me like, what are you doing? Well, I thought the law was reliable, that if I threw this stuff they would fall to the ground, but obviously it's not a reliable law, so it's just going everywhere. No. God put our universe in place and He made it with laws that are real. I can know what they are. We study them in school and they are reliable. Anytime on planet Earth I drop something, it's going to fall. That is a law of gravity. It is real and reliable. Now we understand that. We live our lives that way. Centrifugal force. I mean, all of those things we learned growing up in school. We live our lives that way. And yet, listen to me, not only did God establish the universe with certain physical laws, but He also established spiritual laws as well. And one of those spiritual laws is found right here in our text. It is the spiritual law of sowing and reaping. Now, this law is just as real as the law of gravity. And it is just as reliable as the law of gravity. And I want that to sink in for just a moment, because by the time we get finished with our introduction today, I hope and pray that all of us will have a new perspective on what it means to sow spiritually and to know for sure that what we sow is going to bring about a harvest. Because this law of God is real and it is reliable. And what we need to do is we need to learn the laws of God, the spiritual laws of God. And then we need to start putting them into practice. So, God operates the universe physically and spiritually according to the laws that He has put into place. And they are irrevocable. The law of gravity on the earth, I'm not talking about in outer space, we're not going to get technical, but on the earth, you drop something and it is going to fall. That is an irrevocable law of gravity. Now, you may overcome that with the law of aerodynamics, but the law of gravity is irrevocable. Okay? Now, that's the first truth we need to know. Now look at our text again. God operates the universe according to laws. The second truth is this: God's laws cannot be scorned. Now look at what it says in our text, verse 7. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. People say, well, I'll violate the laws of God and that won't make any difference. I'll just go my own way, do my own thing, and I'll be okay. Well, You may go your own way, do your own thing, and you may be okay for a while. But the Bible says